What's up, guys? I'm at Heirloom Soils today. We're here with Luis. He's going to give us a little tour. We're going to talk about what makes soil healthy and how you can improve your soil in your garden. So we're going to talk about what makes soil great and why soil is the most important thing when it comes to healthy plants. So what are some of the products you guys have at Heirloom Soils, Luis?
The veggie herb soil, which is the most popular, as well as the leaf mold compost. We have a multi-purpose grow soil, a potting soil called the Works. One that is kind of a seasonal product is called fruit berry and citrus mix for fruit berries and citrus. We also have the cactus and succulent soil and the landscape beds.
Nice. So we're going to talk about some of the ingredients that makes a good potting soil mix and a garden soil mix, and what are some of the differences with, say, like compost and other types of ingredients and products you might find in your garden, and why soil is so important for the health of your plants. You know, I see a lot of times people say, "Oh, why are my plants dying?" Well, a lot of times it might be with the soil, not having good soil. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are going to make your soil healthy so your plants stay healthy. So Luis is going to give us a tour of Heirloom Soils so we can see the process of making great soil. So we're going to show you all the ingredients in this amazing soil from Heirloom Soils. So let's garden on. This is leaf mold compost,
This is
right?
leaf mold compost, yes.
So it makes it like the standout ingredient in some of your soils.
So leaf mold compost has to be made from 100% leaves. I mean, obviously there's going to be some twigs and some thicker, pieces in there, but for the most part, we have 100% leaves. It takes us 9 months to make leaf mold compost. So from the minute somebody brings leaves to the yard, and then it gets, we place them in a large pile of leaves, gigantic pile of leaves. Then we grind it, we turn it, and then we screen it. Once it's screened, that's 9 months from the minute it got here until it's fully processed. Now, leaf mold compost is considered a bacterial compost for the most part, and that is something that is very beneficial for microbes to munch on. I mean, usually, what you think about organic matter is pretty much what are the microbes eating, what are they thriving on, and that's going to be one of the base products
So
for
basically, to have healthy soil, you're going to have microbes, but you need to feed them the microbes. And this leaf mold compost is what feeds all the microbes.
just one of the ingredients that feeds them.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, this is actually pretty warm right now. Like we said, this is it has finished its cycle, so it's compost. But whenever you have anything on top of like this, it's going to feel warm because it's going to continually.
Yeah, so the reason why there's heat in compost or any soil blend is because imagine you are in a room full of people, the doors are closed, a DJ is spinning a record, everybody's dancing, people start sweating.
Yeah.
That's what happens in the compost pile. It's
way
a
to
big
put it.
party. Yeah, it's a big party all the time. Yep.
All right.
All right, so now let's go and look at the second ingredient, which is super cool, Coco Coir fiber.
Nice. All right, guys. So we're in front of the Coco Coir pile. So this is the second base ingredient that makes their soil really good for your garden.
So Coco Coir is obviously comes from coconut harvesting, right? So the you take the peel of the cocoa, and then between the actual coconut that holds the water and the meat of the coconut,
Yeah.
that is fiber. So what we do is we source this renewable ingredient, which once processed is really fluffy,
Yeah.
really silky. It's really light, and it's a wonderful product to mix with soils. Unlike peat moss, which is non-renewable and is extracted from a bog, whether it's in Canada, Latvia, or Lithuania, this is harvested from a tree which continues to grow and continues to produce fruit.
So why is this such a good ingredient to have in the soil?
One, it lightens the soil, so you don't have to use something mulch, like mulch fiber, right, or wood fiber. Two, yeah, pH is pretty neutral. The good thing about peat moss is that the pH is lower, so it's more acidic, but this pH is neutral. Three is it just creates that very nice silky consistency in the soil, and it adds a lot of volume to the soil. And it's also good organic matter for the
So does it also help with retaining more water too?
It does retain moisture, as you can see here. This pile has been under rainwater, but it does retain a good amount of moisture. But it doesn't. What thing we find is that it doesn't saturate and retain that moisture to where the root systems will be soggy or
It
dry.
doesn't clump together. It
No,
keeps it
no,
nice
it's very nice.
even.
So, yeah,
Okay.
which is something that peat moss sometimes tends to do.
Yes, I've noticed that.
Yeah, kind of like
Clumps together.
close together. Yeah, you see it done with like indoor plants a lot of the times, where you water and the water does not go in; it just goes out, just shuts out. I don't know what you call it.
Because I've grown things with peat moss in the past. And I've noticed sometimes my plants don't do as well, but when I started using Coco, my plants seem healthier.
Yeah, cocoa is a wonderful thing. One thing we do have to make sure of is that when we source cocoa, which comes from India, is that we're sourcing a product that's washed or buffered, meaning the salt content needs to be below 0.5, because if it's not, what happens when it goes into the soil, the root systems will get too much salt and they'll get shocked and die.
All right, Luisa, so tell me about what this is and what makes this beneficial to some of the soil that you have in your soils.
This is one of the most interesting ingredients we use, expanded shale. So let me show you two different sizes of expanded shale we use. This is what we call 3/8 by 0, which goes to sand grain. This is called 3/8. So expanded shale comes from the fracking process to extract natural gas. And the shale goes in a kiln and it's heated in the kiln to, if I'm not mistaken, the exact temperature is 1,862 degrees Fahrenheit. When it goes into a kiln, it pops like popcorn, and it's what changes the chemical and physical structure of shale. When you see it under a microscope, it's going to have a honeycomb-like structure. So when we put this into the soil, and you have an excess amount of water, the shale is going to absorb some of that water and keep it, and then start releasing it as the conditions get dry. The shale also creates a lot of structure and porosity in the soil blend. That way the root systems are able to grow deeper and be more healthy. And also it acts as a hotel for the microbial activity.
Right? That's what I was going to ask
In
you.
the soil, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool product. To explain it is the radio, but Skip Richter on Garden Line always talks about compost and expanded shale as products that you can use for compacted soils or lawns and so forth. But they're really
So not only does all the water absorb into all those little microscopic holes, but also the microbes can have a place to hide bigger microbes that might eat them, right?
well, that could be one of the things that I never thought about. But yeah, you're right all that. There is a post that we made on Heirloom Soils Instagram a long time ago, so you have to scroll down a lot. But what we did is we took 2 jars, one full of expanded shale and the other jar is full of water. And we poured the jar that's full of water into the jar with expanded shale, and we let it sit there for 18 hours. After 18 hours, the jar that was full of expanded shale and now water had about a third of the water had been absorbed by the expanded shale, so it was a third empty. And what we did is we poured all the water from the expanded shale jar back into the jar with water, and it was always, because it was dusty, it's not like muddy water. And then we let it sit there for a few days while the water started to release the expanded shale.
So you guys can imagine, like, especially like if you have maybe a little bit of a drought, how much beneficial or how much more beneficial expanded shale would be for your soil, because if you're not getting rainwater, or if you have like a restriction, you're not getting water, but like having an ingredient that could, you know, absorb more water would be super beneficial to have in your soil.
Yeah, absolutely. Some soil companies use a polymer in their soil blends, and the polymer, once you water it, the polymer expands because it's, you know, filling up with water. It expands, and as the conditions get dry, it retracts. But that polymer is only going to last a certain time. It's a good ingredient to have in soil. Expanded shale does not expand or retract; it just absorbs and releases the moisture as the conditions get dry. So, if you have expanded shale in your arsenal of ingredients, use it, or get something with expanded shale. We're not the only company that has expanded shale in their products, but just look for one that has expanded
Yeah, it could definitely benefit your garden if you add expanded shell to your soil so you can have healthy plants.
Absolutely.
And so you can have water in your soil too, especially when in the midst of the summer when it's not raining a lot.
Yep. So let's take a look now at the mineral content.
Okay.
The two sands we have for mineral content.
Yeah, because we talk about NPK all the time, but we don't really hear much about like the micronutrients. So
Correct.
we'll talk about that next, right?
Yep.
Right, cool. Let's go. Micronutrients are the trace nutrients that's really important. Add to your soil. That's probably almost arguably like just as important or more important to have for your soil than say just the NPK.
So we hear about fertilizers on TV, on the radio, on print, and also on the internet. Always NPK, fertilizer this, fertilizer that. We never hear about the micronutrient. The fertilizer is the macronutrient, which is the food we eat. The trace mineral is going to be the micronutrient, which would be the vitamin we take in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Or we eat veggies with high nutrition or very rich. What do they call it? Like super greens, for example.
Yeah.
Kale, all the super greens. So something that is missed on a regular basis in soils is the nutrient. At Heirloom Soils, we use two different sands. They're not on every product. They're in products depending on the needs of that crop. So, for example, here we have basalt sand. So, basalt sand comes from the black process to extract something called black star gravel, which is common in Texas for pathways. And this is called granite sand. So this comes from granite shoals, hill country area. This comes from Canepa, Texas, which is southwest of San Antonio. And both of these sands have a high trace mineral content. Basalt sand being a very dense volcanic rock, and granite being granite. I don't know the explanation. Yeah. Different trace minerals. From what I'm told, and I was hearing one of the fertilizer reps, she told me that plants can only absorb 14 different minerals. Now, the soils may have more than 14 trace minerals, but it's the trace minerals that allow for more nutrient absorption of the food that goes into gardening, which is the fertilizer.
So what are some of the other ingredients that you guys add that we can go check out next?
So we can go see other ingredients like pine bark. Pine bark is a really important one, and it's actually pretty cool to see how pine bark is made. So let's go.
All right, cool. All right, so like we just said, the next ingredient that they add to a lot of their soils over here at Heirloom Soils is pine bark. So you were talking about how the pine bark lowers the pH and makes it more acidic. Can you help explain to some of my viewers why that's beneficial to their gardens and why it might help them grow a wide range of plants like you were just talking about?
So pine bark is one of these ingredients that is obviously the bark of a pine. When we get it just as bark, and it's these really large bark chips. So for example, they may look like this or something larger than this, something like that. And so what we do is we set it here, we water it, and then we grind it. This runs through a grinder like butter. It's very, very easy to grind. But once we age it and add it to a soil, what our intention is and our goal is to lower the pH of the soil. So right now, for example, in Houston, we're gonna have a pH of about 7 to 7.2, which is the natural pH of the products here in Houston. Our goal is to lower the pH to a 6.9, 6.8. If we can get it to a 6.7, great. But pH in Houston is always gonna try to fight itself up.
Yeah.
The lower the pH, the more acidic the product is. If we're in that range of 6.7 to 7.0, what happens is the root systems are able to absorb more nutrients from the soil media, because the soil media is allowing that root system to eat and absorb it, right? Yeah. That's the key about something like this. And also, as you can see, it is not dust and is not super chunky. Obviously, there's this piece that's chunky. This is how it comes here.
So it's gonna give you volume.
But it's gonna give you volume, and also it's gonna give you structure. So that's the key. It's like always think about the structure, the quality of the organic matter, and what that organic matter does to the whole soil blend as a whole. How it plays with all the other ingredients.
I feel like that's a topic that's kind of overlooked sometimes, is how important like soil structure is, right? Because it's not just about like the ingredients, is you got to make sure you have solid structure so the roots are healthy, because without like, if it's just sand, everything's just going to wash away, right?
Correct.
So like you need that structure and those other ingredients.
Yeah, you need the structure and the ingredients. So yeah, now we've seen kind of three main base products we use for our soil blends, which are the leaf mold compost, the Coco core fiber, and the aged pine bark. Those are the three main organic ingredients or organics.
And I also want to mention too how you were talking about how the pH, how you guys are trying to get the pH lower, but like here in Houston we have an alkaline soil. That's why it's really hard for us to grow blueberries, because they need like acidic soil. Yep. So
and there are other ways to lower the pH, like if you're a coffee drinker, for example, and you're brewing coffee at home, save your coffee grounds and you can incorporate those coffee grounds into the soil. So that's one of the things that allows for somebody to grow blueberries successfully.
Yes.
So, and the pH is always going to fight its way up back to where it's.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at right there. Okay.
The higher you go above 7 is when you start getting into alkaline. Alkaline situations don't allow plants to grow. They get shocked. They're like super sad, and then they die. And if it's too acidic, obviously, then they're going to die as well, right? So you got to keep it in that range. Yeah. So now we can go see the equipment.
Yeah,
equipment is a cool thing
that's
to see.
The cool part. Yeah, let's go check that out next. Yeah. All right, Luis, so we're inside some kind of screen. So what exactly is this, and what do you guys use it for?
Yeah, so this is called a drum. I mean, depends on who you're talking to, right? A drum, trommel, a screen, a cylinder. This thing has gaps, and we were talking about this, how my finger can go through this gap right now. So my pinky finger goes through the gap. This is a 1/2 inch screen. So if you take a tape measure, you're gonna get 1/2 inch from corner to corner. And this is used to screen soils, compost, sand. So one of the things we do here is we screen infill mix for baseball fields, for example. And so that goes to the screen because it's a larger gap. For heirloom soils, we use this screen for some of the products, and then we use the 3/8 of an inch, which is a smaller gap where my pinky doesn't even fit through the screen. So this screen here, it's about just this piece, about $22,000 approximately. But it comes in a machine that can screen all kinds of different products and is interchangeable. So we can pick up this screen, take the other one off, and put this one on in about 15 to 20 minutes, which in previous technologies, it would take a whole day.
So you said the machine this screen goes into, it's a $600,000 machine?
Yeah, the machine this goes in, the screen goes into a machine that's top-started with German technology, very common in landscape supply, like product manufacturing such as soils and mulches. That machine is about $600,000.
So again, like what kind of ingredients get screened through all these screens?
So we got soils, we can screen mulches, we can screen gravels and aggregate, we can screen infill mix, we can screen sand, topsoil. Now, the higher the clay content of the product is, the more the screen gets like locked. So if you screen topsoil, you have to stop after a certain amount of time because the whole screen will be completely covered with clay. Yeah.
So what exactly is the benefit, and does the actual screen do to make the soil better?
So you have more consistency on the size of the finished product. When we screen products that have, for example, pine bark, you saw how I put larger chunks of pine bark, what we call nuggets. So when we put it in the screen, that nugget is not going to go through the screen,
so it's more
consistent. It goes out the other end like a digestive system, right? And so only the product, when you pick up soil and you see how fine and consistent the product is because everything that got screened went through this gap right here.
Yeah.
And that's the finished product, right? So you have a consistency of product. Sometimes other companies may use a front-end loader and a pad, and the product will not be as consistent, and it will have some chunks, and that's because they don't use a screen.
So it may be more of a slightly more expensive product than some other companies, but it's actually a better product because you guys are using technology that's going to make it more unified, and the ingredients is in your soil, better for the environment.
Absolutely, yeah. And most companies have a screener, but also the cost of the machine also dictates how much yield we get on production, right? So we get a lot of yield with this machine. It's fast, it's very efficient, and we really love it.
Nice. So Luis, you mentioned that you guys have a lot of different types of soil products, but some of the main products that I use from you guys are like the cactus soil mix, the fruit tree soil mix, and the vegetable soil mix. What are some of the differences between those three soils that might make each soil stand out from each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. For example, the cactus soil is the most complex soil blend we have. 55% of that whole soil blend comes from inert product. That is expanded shale, perlite, basalt sand, granite sand, and torpedo sand. So 55% of that product is made from those ingredients. Where the veggie and herb is going to have about 15% of the inert content will be expanded shale, torpedo sand, and granite sand. It doesn't have to be salt sand. And then the citrus mix is going to have torpedo sand and granite sand, plus the other ingredients in a different ratio. So it depends on the plant and how much density the root system wants and how heavy the product needs to be to allow all that water to shed off and drain. That's why the cactus and succulent soil is the highest percentage of those ingredients, because it's very heavy, but it also drains really fast. Cactus and succulents don't want soil, right? So it's why a lot of cactus and succulents that are planted on the cactus and succulent soil that I've had to take out from where I originally planted them, because they grew so big, and once they transplanted them to something else, they are not even bigger. And it's because of, I think, this may be a biased opinion, right? But it's the soil.
Yeah, well, I agree with you because I've used the soil too, and I've noticed some of my plants grow super healthy in the soil for your company versus some other companies. So, so like we said in the beginning of the video, the health of your plants starts with healthy soil.
Yeah, one of the things that we hear the most is somebody planted a cactus, a succulent, or a citrus tree or plant in a big box brand name that may have a lot of peat moss, and they died. The plants died, or it didn't perform. And so I think it's the ratios that make such a big difference. And kudos to who made those plants. His name is Mark Bowen at Heirloom Soils, and he's really a guru when it came down to formulating and adjusting those ratios and making sure that each product has the right amount of ingredient for that specific product. So,
yeah. So again, it's all in the soil.
All in the soil. That's the base. That's the most important part. Yep. So this is a pile of what landscapers, tree companies bring us. We are a green waste recycling facility. So we have debris and they don't leave it on the curb. They have to take it somewhere. So in the northeast part of Houston, we are one of the primary green waste recycling facilities where we recycle all green waste. So any tree, grass clippings, leaves, anything that's pulled out of the ground. Now, one of the important things is not to have foreign items, right?
Metal.
Yeah, metal. And so you saw me pick this up because it was on the ground, right? And so one of the things we dislike is when, for example, a landscaper comes in with a big load of green waste, and in the middle, we find this, which interestingly enough, says homies. But if this goes into the grinding process, this gets shredded into 100 pieces, and it goes into the mulch, right? And so when you find foreign objects and finished product, it's because somebody littered.
Not a bunch of trash here. This is going to be recycled into, like, say, compost and mulches, right? And really benefit, your gardens and landscape.
Just to give you an idea as to why this industry has grown so much is because if a landscaper goes to a landfill with a trailer, say the trailer is 20 foot by, let's say it's 20 foot by 6, and it has 4 foot sides, the landfill is going to charge that landscaper about $250 to dump that load at the landfill. And the landfill is going to bury that waste, the trees, the leaves, and so forth. So the waste will never break down, it'll just be buried. When they come,
So, sorry to interrupt, but it would be like anaerobic, right? There's no oxygen getting into the landfill, whereas you guys are constantly mixing it and adding that nutrients and the airflow into that so it breaks down.
Correct. Yeah.
Whereas in a landfill, it might get nullified, right?
It just gets put in the pile, and it gets topped with subsoil, and then it just keeps growing, and that it'll never go anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But that same landscaper comes here with the same load, and we charge them, let's say, $80 or $100. Yeah. So they save a lot of money, not dumping green waste into the landfill. When we come here, we process the green waste, we grind it, we screen it, we shred it, we compost it, we do all kinds of different things, and we create mulches, uh, soils for grass, for planting grass, for planting trees, for planting whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
like a business like yours is much more sustainable for the planet than like just dumping it.
correct, yeah. And there's companies like ours all over Houston, and yeah, we encourage people to, if you have green waste, go to one of these facilities and dispose of the green waste there. There's a fee. That's how we do business and stay in business, but it's the right thing to do.
So next I want to show you how Heirloom Soils fills up these bags of soil. So first, as you can see, it comes down through this machine. The bag gets weighed, it gets sealed, and as you can see, this is a very labor-intensive process. But they're looking to upgrading this machine to a more automatic process to help with, the efficiency of filling these bags of soil. So as you can see, this is a two-man team. So the other guy at the other end of the conveyor belt grabs the soil, puts it onto a pallet, which these pallets hold 50 bags of soil, and then they get wrapped. And so yeah, it's a pretty cool process of how they fill up these bags of soil.
So there's also a big difference between potting soil mix and like in-ground soil. So this is the work soil. So what separates the works potting soil mix from some of the other soils you guys have?
Yeah, so this product is made with my compost as a base. It's the only product in the soils lineup that doesn't have sand. So the ingredients for structure and also drainage are going to be perlite, expanded shale, and also the larger chips of pine bark, which is the small stuff we saw. But in essence, that's what creates the structure. Because it doesn't have sand, it's not suggested that you use it in the ground.
So I think that's one of the things that some beginner gardeners get confused about, the difference between potting soil mix and say in-ground garden soil. So this is the type of soil you want to use for pots. So if you're growing anything in a container or in a pot, you need to use potting soil and not like in-ground soil.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference. Like this has,
And also,
you said, like different things to keep the structure.
yeah, so this product is going to have, in addition to the ingredients of perlite, expanded shale, pine bark, coco coir fiber, and leaf mold compost, it's a very complex ingredient list. So we're going to have humics, we're going to have biochar, we're going to have agricultural molasses, we're going to have mycorrhiza, and also vermicompost.
Yeah.
So it's a very well-rounded product, and people are using it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're going to grow anything in a pot, make sure you use the potting soil mix, and if you have access to this is really good stuff.
And if you're going to grow in ground, don't use potting mix.
Yeah.
It's not heavy enough. It's not
Yeah.
dense enough. So when you go in ground, use something that is for in-ground planting. You have something that's elevated, a container or a pot. Use something that is lighter, that drains really well. So this is the option for it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I do a lot of, I grow a lot in containers because I have a small space. So again, I see a lot of beginners asking the difference or not knowing the difference between potting soil and in-ground. So just make sure you use the right soil for the right type of plant and in the right growing condition. I just want to touch on and wrap things up a little bit and talk about some of the most important ingredients that you guys add to your soils to make it super healthy.
So fiber, the aged pine bark, the sands that have the mineral content, expanded shale. But one of the things we don't talk about, and it's probably one of the most important ingredients, is mycorrhiza fungi. That one ingredient that builds the microscopic highways that attach to the root systems and access more nutrients in that soil medium.
So basically that's going to create a symbiotic relationship between all the microbes, the fungi, and the soil. Basically, like you said, it creates these highways. So actually, I think I've heard before, 1 teaspoon of soil has more life in it, like as far as microscopic life, than people on this planet. So if you want healthy plants, you need healthy soil because soil isn't dirt. It's actually living organisms in that soil. So thanks again, News. And guys, until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side of the garden. Thanks, boys.
Hashtag living soil.
Yeah, it's all about the living soil.